Love is wonderful. It's a pursuit we all embark upon, and once we discover it, we find ourselves in a state of euphoria as if on a cloud. Everything undergoes a beautiful transformation courtesy of the love we harbor for another individual. The world's complexities appear to fade, our smiles grow more frequent, our moods lighten, and even our sleep becomes more restful, all thanks to the intoxicating elixir of love. Nonetheless, on occasion, that profound affection we hold can obscure our discernment, rendering us susceptible to individuals whose sole objective is to inflict harm upon us. Rachel Lewis was an attractive 19-year-old Australian student who dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. Her parents, Tom and Lara Lewis, were two well-known doctors in the country, both pioneers in the research of new treatments for Alzheimer's. However, although she was initially tempted by the idea of following in their footsteps and becoming the third doctor in the family, her love of animals and nature proved stronger, and she ended up enrolling in a veterinary career at the University of Melbourne. Rachel was a bright, kind, intelligent young woman, and one could even say that she was part of the popular group at school. Everyone looked up to her, and she was held in high regard by her teachers. She had a great future ahead of her and a family that loved her and supported her in all her decisions. What could go wrong? Nothing or everything, depending on how you look at it. As you'd expect from a girl like her, young Lewis had never been in trouble ever, and of course she never had a boyfriend or anything like it. For her, her top priority had always been her studies and her career, so having a boyfriend, getting married, and starting a family would have to wait until she had her veterinary degree in hand, or at least that's what she thought. And there was one thing Rachel and her parents hadn't counted on when making their college plans for the future. Love can't be planned ever, and if you do, chances are you'll end up losing. And that is precisely what ended up happening to our protagonist when one quiet summer night she decided to go out for a drink with her college friends. She fell madly in love, but unfortunately with the wrong person, although she couldn't know that yet, of course. That night she would meet a person who would turn her whole world upside down and who would shatter the stability she'd managed to preserve all her life. For if there was one thing brilliant student Rachel Lewis could go wrong with, it was love. The one subject in which no textbook can give you the answers and prevent you from making the wrong decision. It all started when Rachel decided to go out for a drink with her colleagues from veterinary school. They had just finished their first-year final exams, were exhausted from studying non-stop for the last few weeks, and needed some fresh air, so they decided to celebrate the end of the course. The evening passed quietly and without incident. Then she saw a handsome young man watching her from the parking lots near the front door. He had long blonde hair and piercing green eyes that left her speechless. Rachel felt her cheeks burning and her heart was pounding. She could only look at this young man and think about the best way to approach him. All these feelings were totally new to her, something she'd never had to deal with before. As she looked at him, she felt really dazed and overwhelmed and didn't like it. However, there was nothing she could do about it either. Luckily, she didn't have to wait long to find out that the young man she kept looking at shamelessly was also attracted to her and wanted to meet her just as much as she did. The mysterious young man's name was Taylor. He was 22 years old and had just finished his engineering studies. A piece of information that Rachel didn't care too much about, truth be told, as she could do nothing but stare at him in rapt fascination. Rachel experienced what we all commonly know as love at first sight, at least on her part. So after a first conversation in which Rachel stammered half the time and kept looking at the floor to try to collect her thoughts, the two would meet again on multiple occasions throughout the summer and begin a courtship about which everyone had many doubts. Especially Rachel's parents and her friend, who didn't look favorably on the romance with a strange boy who seemed to have come out of nowhere. However, Lewis had eyes and ears for no one else, and against the wishes of her traditional parents, moved in with Taylor as soon as she started sophomore year. "I'm very much in love, Mom. I only ask that you respect my feelings and my decisions. Taylor and I are very happy to be moving in together, and I'm looking forward to starting a new life with him. This won't affect my future in any way, I assure you. You can rest assured I've fallen in love, but I'm still me." Rachel was convinced that she'd made the right decision, so much so that she even dared to confront her parents for the first time in her life. A bravery that would soon turn to shame and regret, but that was something she couldn't yet see coming. Also, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell to get inspired by these real-life stories every day. Now, back to the story. After the first 6 months living together in a small apartment, the couple was happy and everything seemed to be going well. Rachel felt more and more in love and kept creating new plans for the future with her boyfriend, but none of these plans would ever come true, unfortunately. One day, suddenly everything started to go wrong when the attractive and polite Taylor became a completely different person than the one she had met a few months before. It all started one night when he came home with a broken arm and a bruised face. Taylor explained to her he'd been mugged while taking money out of the bank and had been left without what little savings he had. Rachel didn't hesitate to offer to help her boyfriend and pay for all the medical treatment he'd need, lending him up to $2,000 in cash to pay the supposed hospital bills. "You're an angel, my love. I promise you I'll return them to you as soon as I can retrieve the money that those people took from me. You don't have to worry about money. Now what's important is you. You have to recover and heal from your wounds, then we'll see what we'll do with the money. I love you very much, you know that. You can always count on me." Rachel was really concerned about Tyler's well-being and didn't hesitate to offer him all the money he asked for just to see him smile. She was totally crazy in love with him. And the truth is that Taylor was all aware of it, too much in fact. He knew Rachel had a lot of money, and he also knew that the love she felt for him had her totally blinded, and she'd do anything he asked of her. Their relationship started to become a sort of contractual relationship where Taylor would have problems and Rachel would quickly come to solve them with big checks of money. For months, she helped him without asking any questions, and despite the opposition of her parents who felt their daughter had gone completely crazy about the man, Rachel didn't give up on him until the day came when he did. One night, Rachel would return from college and discover the bitterest of truths, realizing how blind she'd been all that time. Taylor had disappeared along with several objects from the apartment they shared. Gone was the furniture, gone was the bed, everything Rachel had bought to furnish the apartment was gone, even the carpets and curtains. There was nothing of value left in the house, and most importantly, no trace of Taylor. He had vanished in a matter of hours, and Rachel had no idea what could have happened. She was paralyzed, and it took her several hours to start reacting, trying to find answers about her boyfriend's whereabouts. However, after only a couple of hours of making calls to friends and acquaintances they had in common, Rachel would receive terrible news. Taylor's mother, Violet, with whom Rachel had formed a very strong bond in recent weeks, told her that her son had been killed by a gang he owed money to and that she'd rather never see him again. Louise was devastated by Tyler's death, but at the same time, she couldn't stop thinking about what had happened and the way Violet had spoken to her. There was something in her voice that made her wary. There were too many things that still didn't fit, and she wouldn't stop investigating until she knew the whole truth about the person with whom she'd shared her last year of life. Rachel was aware that she'd made a mistake by trusting Tyler, but she would accomplish nothing by regretting it and locking herself at home. She would find out the truth about Taylor and the lifestyle he was leading that supposedly cost him his life. As she continued to investigate, she began to discover some really surprising things that made it very clear to her what kind of person she'd fallen in love with. Some of Tyler's friends, whom Rachel had only met a couple of times, told her Tyler owed money to a lot of people, including them, to whom he owed more than $2,000 in illegal bets he'd lost. Tyler wasn't the perfect guy you thought he was. He had you well and truly fooled, Lewis. He's a con man and a gambling addict. That's the man you fell in love with, and if he's dead, believe me, the world won't miss him. One of Tyler's old friends told Rachel when she went out looking for him to ask about her boyfriend. For several weeks, Lewis continued to investigate and discovered Tyler not only owed money to multiple people, but that there were other girls he had cheated in the same way he cheated her. In fact, nothing she was discovering came as a surprise to her. After seeing his empty apartment and learning he'd been killed in a gambling murder, it was clear to Rachel the person she thought she knew didn't exist and she'd be much better off without him. The young woman decided to try to move on with her life and forget everything that had happened. She returned to live with her parents and continued her veterinary studies. However, as fate would have it, 3 years after receiving the news of Tyler's supposed death, Rachel ended up having dinner at the same restaurant where he worked as a waiter. It was an upscale restaurant that had only been open for a few months, and Rachel had gone with a couple of friends from work. Tyler was the last person she expected to meet there. Upon seeing her, Tyler ran off, and when Rachel tried to ask him about him at restaurant, no one knew anything about a waiter named Taylor. Apparently, after cheating on her and faking his death, Tyler had changed his name and tried to make a more honest living. He certainly hadn't expected to run into her so long afterward, much less while he was serving her dinner. After that, Rachel was very frustrated, and not knowing what to do, she decided to go to the police to explain her story. Unfortunately, there she didn't find any valid answer, as they simply told her in court it would be her word against his, and that she had very little chance that a prosecutor would take her case forward with the little real evidence she had. Seeing that there was no way to get justice, and having spent several sleepless nights after her fleeting encounter with Tyler at the restaurant, Rachel decided to forget about it again and move on with her life. And she did. She became a successful veterinarian with her own practice in the city of Melbourne. She also met a wonderful man who was also in the medical profession, to whom she became engaged and married after 2 years of dating. Rachel had managed to be happy and completely forgotten about Tyler and his scams. She lost all hope of ever recovering the money he stole from her, let alone receiving an apology. However, Tyler couldn't forget about her, and after many years, guilt and redemption led him to leave a mysterious envelope in the mailbox of Rachel's new home. The envelope contained a letter of his apology and confession of all his deceptions with her. He also explained his gambling and problems and asked for forgiveness for having taken advantage of her money. But most surprising of all was the $3,000 that accompanied the letter, the exact amount of money he owed Rachel. And there it was, inside an envelope, and with all the money he had stolen from her when they were dating, the apology she'd been waiting her for so long and that had stolen her dreams for years. Upon reading it, Rachel was very happy to know that even if it was late, Tyler needed to redeem himself and start acting differently. After that, she never heard from him again, but that didn't matter to her anymore. This story doesn't have the happy ending that we all would have liked, and we can't say justice was done. However, for Lewis, it was the way to close a very painful stage of her life and to say goodbye in peace to someone with whom she'd been so angry for so long. Tyler did a lot of things wrong, but in the end, he managed to do something right, ask for forgiveness. And in the end, that's the most important thing. To forgive, to be able to move forward, live and let live. That's what it's all about. Did you like this touching and surprising story? If so, we invite you to leave us a comment expressing your opinion. If you want to continue enjoying inspiring stories like this one, subscribe to our channel or check out the other videos shown at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for your cooperation.